Good evening and welcome to the Ombudsman program. My name is Diane Welborn. I'm the Ombudsman and I'm going to be your host for this evening's program. I am very pleased that tonight I have with me two guests who are going to speak to us about CICSA, and I'm going to let them tell us all about what that is. I won't unpack that an acronym. But I have with me this evening Nora Vondrell, who is the Executive Director, and you're actually the Chief Executive Officer now, right?
That's correct.
Congratulations, Madam CEO.
Thank you.
Great. And I also have with us tonight Katie Neubert, who is the Director of Community Engagement, and you are going to hear later as to why community engagement is so important for this organization. So thank you for coming, Katie.
Thank you.
And we also have some other guests that I'm going to let Nora and Katie introduce. Please do the honors.
Well, this is Bambi, and Bambi is a 2-month-old mixed breed dog. I always say AKC, all kinds combined.
All kinds combined. Okay.
And this shy lady here who is running off is Marguerite, and she's one of our older cats, and she is looking for her forever home, and she just wants to cuddle up, but she also likes to explore.
Okay, and that's natural of cats, right?
I think so.
That's how they are and what they do. Well, thank you for bringing the furry guests to the program this evening as well. Nora, I'll ask you to please tell us about the title of your organization, and I'll ask our camera crew to please put up the first slide for us that is CICSA. You can tell us what it stands for, and then we'll move on to mission and some others, but the viewers can see this as well.
Great. It stands for the Society for the Improvement of Conditions for Stray Animals. And it was started in 1974 by a group of volunteers who were looking for something different than the traditional animal welfare system available at the time. And so we were started, and we didn't have a facility or anything in the beginning. It was just the volunteers would house the animals in their home and then set up makeshift adoption centers on the weekend. And we were the only what is now considered, and I hate it when they use this, but we were considered the only no-kill facility when we started. And for many years in this community, we were really one of the only no-kill options. And I don't like no-kill because no one goes into this this genre of profession to kill animals, but we're just a little bit different, and I think we're going to get into a little bit of that about the difference. But for us, we're a limited intake facility. We don't euthanize for space, so that's where we get the whole no-kill. And you can see that our mission is that we promote the welfare and adoption of companion animals and nurture loving, lifelong relationships between animals and people.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's a noble mission to have, and a good history. Now, is CICSA a national organization? It is.
We aren't.
Dayton, born and bred.
You got it. We're private, not-for-profit. We're not facilitated with any. We're not with any national organization. We're not a sister site or anything like that. We do have partners throughout the community and nationally, but we're our own entity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Thank you. Tell our viewers a little bit about the volume of the work that you do. I mean, I know everybody keeps count of all the statistics and all the animals and all of the procedures and all of the adoptions. So why don't you just tell our viewers the volume? I was surprised to learn how large it is.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that people are not familiar with is just how much CICSA does do in the community. The CICSA Pet Adoption Center, we started out very small and very rescue-based, and now we're a $1.5 million organization in this community that works not only in Montgomery County, but all over the state of Ohio. And annually we adopt out over 1,600 animals. That's just our adoption program. But then we also work to prevent animal homeless. We do over 3,600 spays and neuters in the community. We last year had almost 8,000 young people go through our humane education programs.
That's remarkable.
It is, and it's not just the staff. We have a staff of 40 or so part-time and full-time. It's a mix, but we have over 600 volunteers who help us with almost every aspect of what we do. So it is we we call ourselves the Six-a-Pack, and we couldn't do it without the entire pack.
Right, right. Everybody plays their role there. And what are your hours of operation?
We're open 7 days a week, with the exception of 7 closed holidays. And we're open Monday through Saturday from noon until 7 p.m. and then on Sundays from noon until 4 p.m.
Okay.
So before noon, we're cleaning up and getting things ready, getting everyone fed and socialized, and then in the evening, getting them down for bed. And in between that time, we love to have all kinds of people come through.
Right. And so then your hours are such that people, no matter of a working schedule, can find a time when they're not working and Six is open. So you really do have a lot of available hours. Great. I'd like us to move on the slides, please, to the slide about adoption. Good, it's already here. So why don't you walk us through this process? So if a person like myself who's never been through it before, let me know what I would do and what I would expect if I come and plan to adopt an animal.
Well, the first thing I'd recommend that you do is you go on our website. Our website has all of our animals that are available for adoption in real time, which means if this little guy was adopted, he would go off the website. Oh, he's like, yes, please.
Yes, he's ready.
He would go off the website, or if he became ill, he would go off the website. But the minute he's available for adoption, he's on the website. So that's the first thing I always recommend that people do. The second thing is to stop in during our hours, and we would ask that you would tour our facility, see if there's anyone that you'd like to meet, and then if you do, we have adoption counselors on hand that will do what we call a meet and greet. They sit down with you. It's an open adoption process in that we ask very open-ended questions, just really trying to get an idea of what is your best match. Our adoption counselors work on finding the best match, not only for these guys, but for you, because if it's not a great match, then you're not going to be happy and the animal's not going to be happy, and so let's see what we can do to make the best match.
Good, okay. And that's the meet and greet then.
And then if you have any family pets, specifically dogs, we would ask you to come in and do a meet and greet. That's not always a requirement, but it's something that we like to see how they interact and get along. We would do landlord verification if you were in some place and you didn't own your own home, just to make sure that you could have an animal. We also offer slumber parties, which are one of my favorite things that we started a couple years ago, where you can actually take one of these guys home and see how they do in your home. And it would just be a couple days up to a week. With a cat, we would recommend that you do an adoption or do a slumber party for a week, because it takes them a little bit longer than dogs to kind of acclimate. And then if it works out, you come back and you adopt, and if it doesn't, then you say, you know what, let's find a different match.
Okay. So we have some pictures. Next two slides we have are of animals that, is this also in lifetime? Are these animals?
They're not, but one of the reasons that I like to show these animals is a lot.
Slide, please. Excuse me. There we go.
It's a lot of times when people think of a shelter, they maybe don't know what they're thinking of and what those animals look like. And so I like to show that these are happy animals. These are healthy animals. These are animals that are pets, and they're just waiting to come home and spend time with you. And so, you know, having that to look at them, and you can see in these pictures, you know, they're being cuddled, they're hanging out with volunteers. All of our cats get at least 2 socializations. Our dogs, you know, they come in all different kinds. We don't do DNA tests on them, so they're mixed breeds, but there's usually someone for everyone. And it's just a matter of coming and looking around and taking the time to find that next family member.
Okay, well that's a really good introduction. I like the idea of the slumber party, and I'd never heard of that before, so you can take the animal home and see how the animal likes your house and how you like him or her being there, so that's just great. Describe also the process of introducing, you know, the pet to the family. What kind of things are you looking for? Are there clues there that you think this really makes a good fit, or maybe this doesn't make such a good fit?
Absolutely. It's about managing expectations. So what's the activity level of the animal that you would like? If you're someone who likes to take really long walks and you like to go fast in your walks, you may not want to be paired with an animal that has limited ability to do that.
Yes.
Vice versa, if you're wanting a cat or a dog to just snuggle with you, then you wouldn't want some of our more active animals. So it's about your expectations. Also where you live. If we have a dog who is an alarm dog, what I call an alarm dog, they like to bark at any sound that is coming around, we might not recommend that for apartment living. That's really difficult versus if you have a detached home situation where they can go outside and bark. Another example would be if your family's ready to deal with some of the either medical issues that we've uncovered or identified financially, if you're able to deal with if they're puppies or kittens, especially puppies, the potty training aspect, the housebreaking, there's some different things that we want to make sure that you understand. Also, animals are not cheap. While the biggest benefit to adopting at a center or a shelter like ours is that their adoptions tend to be less than what you might get at a breeder or somewhere like that. Please don't forget the medical expenses. Not unlike humans, they should see a veterinarian every year to just get them checked out and see how are things going, make sure they're up to date on all their shots, growing the way they should grow. Not to mention if anything happens. Animals get colds just like humans do. Animals can get sprains and hurt themselves just like animals. So we want to make sure that you're prepared financially for what these little guys can cost a family.
Okay, that's another very important part. In my office, we often speak to seniors who are making a transition in their life, maybe downsizing or moving into a different environment, and can't take their pets with them, which is a really sad thing. I mean, that's what they want to do, but sometimes they can't. Are you able to accept animals under these kinds of conditions?
We do. We actually get the majority of our animals, especially the majority of our cats come in through the community in one way or the other. But we do. They're called surrenders, and we have a managed intake process, which means you just can't go and say, hi, here it is. So we ask that you call, you make an appointment. Our intake process is a two-step process. We do a behavior evaluation. Doesn't necessarily mean if you have a dog or a cat that's not the most friendly that they won't pass. It's not a pass-fail necessarily. It's really looking for certain behaviors that would not work well in our center. And then after that, and not necessarily in the same day, sometimes it takes a little bit of time, they would go see the veterinarian as well. So we would do a full workup on them at some point in time to see, hey, are there any medical conditions that we need to know about? And if so, because we're very transparent about our adoption process, if we know that there's something going on either behaviorally or medically, we want you to know. And so we're doing all we can to find that information out.
Okay, well that's very good. Do you like the vet records from, do you ask
we
for
do.
that? Yeah, from where the animal has received care?
Yes,
Okay.
any kind of vet records. If you do have an animal that is purebred and you want to bring that information, that's always nice to help with the adoption process. But and then we ask a lot of questions in that process. How are things going in terms of how do they do in your home? Where do they sleep? What are they eating? How often are they eating? So we ask lots of questions in the intake process.
We have a caller, obviously, so we're going to go ahead and listen to your question, please. You're on the air.
Yes, this is a wonderful program. So grateful for the work of this organization, VICTA. I have two very different kinds of questions. In my neighborhood, I belong to an online email network where neighbors send one another messages all during the day. And one of the messages that I receive frequently is a message about lost dogs or dogs that are unattended roaming through the neighborhood. I would never call the pound or I would never put, the life of one of those dogs in jeopardy. Could I call CICSA? Is the kind of call that you are willing to receive? And then my second question is a very different one. My mother, elderly mother, had a little dog that was so helpful to her during the last years of her life. It was such a constant companion. And as other family members in our family age, I'm just wondering, in your experience, what kind of pets, dogs or cats, are best as companions for older people? Thank you for letting me ask my question.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your calling in. We'll get an answer for your question right now. Very good questions. So the first one about the lost dog.
Sure.
It happens. They get loose.
They do, and that's why it's so very important for dogs that you get them licensed, that you have a license for them. And it is a requirement in every county that they be licensed. And then for cats, we highly recommend microchipping. And in fact, I would recommend microchipping for both. But in Montgomery County, we do have an agreement, in Greene County, et cetera, that you actually, so the caller didn't want to send to the pound. We would actually say, please send them, please call the pound. Because for dogs, there's one place that we all have to go to look for them. Rather than having to call CICSA, the Humane Society, us, and all these little rescue groups, we've all agreed we're going to send them to the Montgomery County Animal Resource Center or the Greene County Humane Society, some of those organizations, so that if I've lost my dog, I only have to look in one place. They will hold them for 3 to 14 days, depending. If there's a microchip, they'll hold them for longer, so that's another benefit of microchipping. But they're an open admission, which means they never close. So they will hold them for sure up to 3 days. After that third day, then they let places like us come and do what we call rescue transfers. That's how we get the rest of our animals. In fact, this little guy came in, actually this guy came in through our surrender program, but I think the cat did come in through our rescue transfer process, and that's where organizations like us go in and say who's available, and they'll say, okay, he's off his stray hold, you can take him. So people think that if they go to the pound,
nobody's claimed him.
Nobody's claimed him, yes. So for that 3 days, they don't go anywhere in hopes that they'll be reunited with their owner. But if that doesn't happen, then they become available for adoption. So some people are really worried that they hold them for 3 days and they're euthanized automatically, and that's just simply not the case, especially if they're not a behavior problem, or if they don't have, now if they end up picking up a dog or a cat that is in such medical issue that the cat or dog is going to be in pain, then they might be at risk of euthanasia. If they're picking up a dog or a cat that is so aggressive that they can't handle it, then after 3 days that may be an issue. But the vast majority of them, they go to facilities like CICSA, and we go once a week, at least once a week, to Montgomery County Animal Resource Center and pull animals that are available for adoption. So, caller, we would actually ask you to send the dog to the ARC. But another good thing you can do is you can call CICSA and you can say, this is what's happened, but he's a really sweet dog. So we would contact them and do what we call an IP, an interested party. We would say, okay, we heard that you had found this dog here, and we would like to be an interested party on that. After those 3-day holds, we would go pick them up.
Go pick them up.
So with cats, it's a little harder because cats are not licensed. So yes, you can always call the Humane Society, and there's actually information on our website of all the things you can do. There are some great Facebook groups about lost and found pets. And I know I'm on a neighborhood app as well, and you hear that information on there.
Yes, thank you. Now, you mentioned something in there I wanted to follow up on, the microchipping of a dog or a cat. I don't actually know exactly what that means. I know that there's a chip embedded that has some information on it. I have no idea what information is on that chip, how it's read by somebody who finds it, how much it costs to put it in there. So tell our viewers about microchipping. For many of us, that's not something that was popular with our pet ownership in the past.
It's a small cylinder-like that is about the piece of a long grain rice. So it's not very big, and it's injected just under the skin of an animal right here. And
You're grabbing the back of the neck.
the back of the neck,
Okay.
and it doesn't. It's like a piercing, so it's a little. When it goes in, I'm not going to say they don't yelp, but then after that they don't feel it.
Okay.
So they don't feel it, and they don't know anything's going on. And what happens is there's scanners that go over. Now there are some microchips these days that are very sophisticated, and they would link to your smartphone, and you could even see where your pet is.
Oh my.
That's not the ones we have. Those are rather costly, but we recommend it if you can afford it. It's a little fun to watch that. But for these guys, it's like a scanner you would see at a grocery store, but it's different. It's made specifically for this. But you go over and a number comes up, and that unique identifier is linked to this animal and linked to whoever is registered with that. So you don't have to pay a yearly fee or anything like that with these microchips. It's always linked to you. The only thing that might cause you a fee once you have it is if you move and you update the information. They might charge you a fee to update that information depending on the microchip company. But for us, we do it for you. In terms of cost, the one-time cost, like at SIXA could be about $25 to do that whole process. But sometimes we run specials where they're even less than that. But you can also get at your veterinarian and see their clinic and ask them what their pricing is. But it should be a one-time, and then you don't have to pay to maintain that.
I see. And so then all places that may find animals would have a scanner, and if my dog had this chip, then they would know to call me. They would have my address.
You got it. It links to you, and then they can contact you.
Okay, great. Do most vets have these scanners as
All
as
vets
well
have
now?
them.
So it's like a standard tool of the trade.
In fact, it's one of the things you can do if you find one. You can immediately take them to someplace like SIXA or the Humane Society or your local veterinary clinic, and that's the first thing they'll do is scan.
Yes, but again, I think back to the caller's question, we want people to understand that you do not go out on those calls. That's
Correct.
not your organization.
You got it.
That's Montgomery County that,
Right,
that has
exactly.
the vans that do that. Well, thank you for providing that information, because anyone who has a dog and it's lost, they want to find it as quickly as they can before it comes to harm. The second part of the caller's question was about that kind of matching, about pets for elderly individuals who may not, be romping around anymore with a dog that needs a lot of exercise. Do you have suggestions for the caller on that?
I do. Certainly dogs and cats, animals bring very positive things to people's lives. Studies show it decreases depression and isolation and can increase activity. So there's lots of good and very positive things, but you want to make sure it matches your activity level, and that's the biggest key I would have is if you're a senior trying to make sure that the animal that you have, that you can match the activity of what he or she needs. So you're going to want to make sure that the animal is able to get out to access, if it's a dog, if it's able to get out and access to be able to use the bathroom. If it's a cat, that you are able to handle the scooping of the litter. Those are the things that you're looking for is the activity level. But yes, we absolutely have, that's part of the adoption process, and our adoption counselors would go over that. We'd also ask that you have some kind of, if you are a senior that is advanced in age, that you would have a plan for them should you become incapacitated. Right. That could be returning them to us,
right.
Or it could be that it would go to live with a relative.
Right. Thank you, Nora. We have another call, so we'd like to get your question answered, please. We'd love to hear it. You're on the air.
I just tuned in, and first of all, I want to thank the ATV and the Ombudsman's Office for offering such a big variety of shows for the day's viewers. And I hope that you haven't already talked about this, but I'm a social worker, and quite often talk to families who are in a crisis situation, maybe needing care for a pet during maybe a brief homeless period, and wondering if SIXA is able to respond in any way. That's one question. The other question, and this is kind of tied to that, is with the increase in homelessness in the Dayton area. I'm wondering if you've seen an increase in the number of people bringing their animals to be adopted.
Thank you very much for those good questions. We'll get those answered for you. Thank you for your call. Okay, first, respite care. Basically, if the human needs a break or needs to be away, is that something SICSA can assist with, or who does?
Absolutely. Both us, the Montgomery County Animal Resource Center, and the Humane Society of Greater Dayton all participate in a program called Protected Pets, specifically geared towards those folks who are seeking shelter for their pets that are in domestic violence situations. So that would be the first one I would bring up. So if you are seeking shelter for domestic violence, for us, we ask that you be involved with a social worker, involved with one of the programs, one of the great programs that we have in the Miami Valley. And so we would ask for proof of that. But we would have an agreement that they could come in. We usually do it two weeks and 30 days at a time, depending on the situation. But as long as you're working with one of those programs and you're moving forward, we provide temporary shelter. And you can visit with them during that time. Because what we have seen is that, especially in domestic violence situations, some people won't leave their abuser because they're fearful for their pets. And so if we can provide a safe haven for the pets, and they can't take them into most of the facilities, so if we can provide a safe haven for their pets, then they can get the help that they need. Beyond domestic violence, we have extended it in certain circumstances to short-term stays at other places. We did one recently with a young woman who was homeless. She was living in her car with 2 dogs and a cat. That is not a great situation for her or the animals, so we did extend that to her. It is on a limited basis because unfortunately we don't have a ton of room for that, but that's one of the things that we're really looking forward to expanding in our new facility, which we'll get to a little bit later, is having that extra space to allow that. And we do explore options with foster homes. We have a great foster home network. We've extended that. So I would say call and ask that question, because we certainly have extended it in those situations. We had a hospitalization where we took care of their animals for a weekend. So yes, that exists.
Good, good. We're glad to know that. It's not always available, but people should at least ask, because it may be. So that's really very, very good. All right, I became interested in preparing for this show about where does your staff learn and how do you teach them, how are they educated about animal behavior? Because you also have some programs we're going to talk about in a minute about animals that may, have some not very pleasant behaviors that we want to correct. And so I just wanted to know where do you get your education for your staff and volunteers about why animals do things they do? Sure.
Well, and Katie, feel free to chime in. I will talk the whole time if you let me. We have we belong to some great networks nationally that provide us with lots of information, and that information, like in most professions, updates the more we learn. And so there's lots of webinars that we can avail our staff with about the latest and the greatest. We have at least one behaviorist, a cat behaviorist and a dog behaviorist position that we also have. Renee Grant is our dog behavior specialist, and she was just certified a year or 2 ago with the IAABC, which you're going to ask me what that stands for, and I don't know. I'm so sorry.
But it's okay.
Animal behaviorist, something. Carlette, who is our youth programs manager, she has been certified as a humane education specialist. So whenever we can get any kind of certification, we try to seek that out. Our professional development is very important to us. When we can attend a national conference, we do, because there's always latest and greatest information there. And then our orientation and training process, the shadowing of, even for volunteers.
For our volunteers, we have what we call Paws and Tails University. Academy
Okay.
for our adults and our Pipers, which is our parent-youth partnerships, as well as our Paws and Tails Academy for our volunteers. And we have them go through classes. Once they've gone through orientation, they're able to go through Dog 101, which is a class that has been designed by our dog behaviorist, and we have a Cat 101 that they can go through that gives them that, what is the body language telling you as you go up to a pet? And how do you respond? What's the best way to meet a new animal, and how to make them feel safe, and that. So that's a lot of what we do, because education is very important to us, and it's something that we're always like going back and reassessing and updating as we go.
Okay, very good. And what are the behaviors of some of the animals that are chosen for the path planning? This is where animals are having their behavior improved through special work with you all. Can you talk a little bit more about that, either one of you?
Well, this is something that actually was Nora's baby when she came on. If you've heard of IEPs in schools,
of course,
the individual education plans. Well, Nora had a background in social work, and so she talked to the staff about creating the path plan.
So in social work, your caller will know who just called in.
Yes.
We do individual service plans. And when I came in, I saw that there were animals that were lingering in care. And part of that is we're open. We have folks on site from early in the morning until late at night. And then we have over 600 volunteers that come through on any different days and shifts. It was important. I wanted everyone to be on the same path of what it took an animal to get adopted. So I took that idea of an ISP or an IEP and made path plans. What is that plan so that all of us are on the same path to getting these guys adopted? And there's all kinds of behaviors that are from the very small to what might seem very large and a big, huge deal that no one wants to deal with. So for instance, in kennels, some dogs, I'm going to talk about dogs specifically, have what we call barrier aggression. So the fact that kennel door is there is very frustrating to them. And so we're working on that behavior because they won't show well in kennel.
Right.
Or for instance, jumping up behavior. This is one that is very common in all dogs, that they'll jump on a human being. Well, when it's a dog that is Bambi's side, it's not a big deal. You scoop them up and you move them, and that creates a whole nother issue that I call little dog syndrome. But when you have an 80-pound dog, you don't want them jumping up on company, so you have to work on that issue. And so we're all working on that. 4 on the floor, which is no jumping, 4 on the floor, quiet in the kennel, that's addressing the barking issue, loose leash walking, making sure that you're not tugging on the leash, which if you have a senior or someone with some mobility issues, we don't want a dog to pull on the leash and cause some of those issues. Those are all things that we're working from day one when they come in here. For a cat, we're starting them from day one, working on getting in and out of a carrier, because you want to take them to the veterinarian. We want you to take them to a veterinarian once a year. So how are you going to do that? They need to get in a carrier. So these are all things that we're working on and addressing from day one once they come in our facility.
Oh, very clever, and I hope you're having lots of success with that.
We have. One story that I love is we had a cat who came into us who was very, very nervous, very afraid, and to the point where we had put the cat back into a room on its own. And so the path plans asked staff only, and we would go in and we would, you'd see Nora sitting in there on a pillow, and she'd have her phone and she'd be answering emails for 10 minutes at a time, and the cat was very upset about that and stuff. But over time, then our cat behaviorist said, okay, now start offering treats. And over a period of, about a week to 10 days, that cat became more trusting, more loving. And by the time the path plan had gone through, this cat was moved into one of our open areas and was adopted, and was a great adoption, what we call a happy tail.
Okay, it's very good. That's a good story. Thank you for sharing that one. We have a lot of questions that you have a number of these on your website, but I thought we would take a quick look at these. And they are, can you take your new pet home the same day?
You can.
Okay.
We have certain boxes that we like to check, like we talked about with the landlord verification, but absolutely. Now, it's not a short process. You're not, if you are coming in and you have a half an hour for lunch, it's not going to happen in a lunch hour, especially a Saturday lunch hour.
Yeah.
We're very busy on Saturdays, and so if you expect to get in and out in a half an hour, it's not going to happen. The adoption process is an engagement. We want you to be engaged into it. So, but yes, you can come in, meet with them, check all the boxes, and walk out. I would again say it's not a 20-minute process, but absolutely.
Thank you for making that clear so people know what to expect. We have yet another caller on the line, so we're anxious to hear your question. You're on the air. I think we will move on, but I hope you will call us back, and hopefully we can hear your question next time. Are all of your animals spayed and neutered?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No exceptions.
Okay, and so if there are many of them when they come in, or are most not?
I would say it's about, gosh, right now it's probably about 60-40. 60% are not, 40% are, and that's a guess.
Okay, I understand.
Most of them we see about, because stray animals, it's one of the benefits of spaying and neutering is an animal may go wandering if they're not spayed or neutered to find people to mate with,
Yes.
Especially males, male cats especially, but also male dogs. So we talk about fence jumpers who go
Yes.
in and visit the next door neighbor's cat or dog.
Yeah.
So if you neuter that male dog, then or you spay the female so that they're not going into heat, you limit that. So I would say a lot of our strays are not because they're out wandering. So 60-40 is my guess.
Okay, and if the adoption doesn't work out, can the animal be returned, or what steps do you all take before deciding that's the way it should be?
So our first thing we'd ask you to do, and we follow up immediately with after each adoption. We are going to check in with you at 2 days, and then we're going to check in with you about a month later to see how things are going. And that's one of the things we want to talk. So if you're having issues, we ask that you call in, and sometimes it's a matter of just understanding the behavior and understanding the situation and being reassured. If for some reason it's not working out, we ask that you do return them to us. Now, that doesn't necessarily, at this point in time, our adoption fees are not refundable. We're a nonprofit, and so there's a lot that goes in with these animals, a lot of medical care, and the adoption fee is just a fraction of what it actually costs us. And so at this point in time, I want to let people know the adoption fee is not refundable, and instead we would ask to fit you with a different, we try to match you with a different animal. In some cases, we have refunded adoption fees because it's been an extenuating circumstances. We didn't catch a medical issue or something like that. But most times we just match you with a different animal. It was something we just didn't know, that we learned about the animal that we didn't know, and we try to find you a better match.
How much are the fees? What are the prices for cats and dogs? I presume it's different. So.
It is different, and it also is different depending on whether or not we have a special. Sometimes we get a grantor that allows us certain specials. But a dog ranges from somewhere about $96 to, we have had highly adoptable animals that have gone in the 500s.
Wow.
And cats can go from $25 to $100 or so dollars. But we do have higher pricing for animals that we call our highly adoptable animals. It helps us offset the costs for those animals that aren't in that category. And so that's why we have what we call variable pricing, because that puppy that came with AKC papers is going to help us with the animal that has a skin condition that's going to sit there for a while, and so we use it to offset the costs. Again, we're a nonprofit trying to make ends meet, and we're very dependent upon the community for their donations to help us, but that helps offset those costs.
Okay. And we have another caller on the air. I hope you've called back. We're ready to hear your question. Go ahead, please.
I'm learning so much from this program. The Dog and Cat Academy. Does one have to be a volunteer with SIXA to take advantage of that? Because of my work schedule, I don't know if I could volunteer, but boy, I would like to learn. And as I'm listening to you all talking tonight, I realize that even though our family has had 3 dogs over the last few years, really, even living with them every day, there was so much I didn't know. The Labrador, beautiful dog that we had, didn't listen very well to commands, and the Weimaraner was evidently able to understand complete sentences in English. So I guess there's a lot that I feel like I don't know, and I'm interested in the Dog and Cat Academy.
All right, thank you very much for that question. Could you hear? Could you? He's
Yeah.
interested in the Dog and Cat Academy. So, okay, maybe he can't volunteer, but he wants to learn more.
I bet he could. That's the great thing about SIXA. You know, as Nora pointed out, we're open 7 days a week, most days throughout the year. And we have over 600 volunteers that come into SIXA and they volunteer with us. We request an average of 4+ hours a month. You know, maybe this month it's only 2, but next month it's 6. But on average, we're looking for 4 hours from our volunteers, and that can be at our 8 o'clock walk with the dogs on a Monday morning. It can be, you know, the last of the day, scooping out and making sure the cats have the water that they need overnight at 6, 7 o'clock at night. It can be on Sundays, it can be on Saturdays, and the main thing is you have to go through our orientation, and we try to offer those at a variety of times. They do fill up super fast. But we have one coming up this Wednesday. Unfortunately, they're full right now, but usually there's one the first Wednesday of each month in the morning, and then in the evening, and then also the second Saturday of each month. And you just go on our website, you fill out the volunteer application, and then go online. In the next 2 weeks, we'll be posting classes for May, June, July, and August.
Okay. So now's a good time for that caller to go online and take a look at that. Excellent. The other thing, moving back to do you have to have a fence to adopt a dog?
You don't, and that's a great question because I think that comes up a lot. Do I have to have a fence? No. As long, that would be one of those matching questions. Are you physically able to take your dog for a walk? If you are, there's lots of great apartment dogs. I mean, if we required fences in places like New York City, we would be in trouble.
Yes.
There's great parks around and great areas, but as long as you have access to it and you have the ability to walk them when they need, no, you do not have a fence.
Okay, well that's very good. What other pet services would you like our viewers to know about? Is there something that didn't make my list?
Well, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, do we do training? So I think one of your callers was asking. I think your caller was asking about our Paws and Tails University, which is training our staff and our volunteers. Right. Is that accessible to the community? And we don't. There's so many great people in this area that are doing it, and we just don't have the room right now to do behavior training, doing those kinds of training. It is one of our hopes for the future, but in the meantime, there's some great recommendations on our website of one-on-one and class training facilities that you can go to.
Okay, very good. So they should look for that. I'd like to put up the slide that here is a little bit about cats and talk about the fact that in many areas or neighborhoods there are problems with way too many cats, that none of them have a home, and they're out there, and this is a problem. It's a problem for all of you that are working in this field. So why don't you inform the viewers what you do, what the problem is, and then maybe what they could do to help solve it.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate the opportunity to share that. You know, we jokingly say that April showers bring May meowers, but the reality is that cats will stay in heat until they're bred. And so what we're asking people to do is, there are more stray cats than there are homes, and in addition, some of those cats are not adoption candidates. You wouldn't necessarily try to put that raccoon that just broke into your garbage last night in an adoption program. Right. They're a wild animal, and there are cats that are wild wild cats. We call them feral cats, and they're not going to be good adoption candidates. And so what can we do if you have a neighborhood that is filling up with cats? There are going to be as many cats in your neighborhood as you allow in your neighborhood. And the reason why they're going to hang around are twofold. One is somebody's feeding them, and if you just take that animal out, then another one's going to come in. That creates a vacuum for them to come in. And the only way to reduce that amount is to spay and neuter them, because the number of cats that are in your neighborhood are going to stay consistent or grow larger depending on whether you create the vacuum or you spay and neuter. So, and it doesn't seem to become a big issue in the months where the weather's really great, but it's going to become an issue if they're creating problems. We get cats that are, as I shared, the cats that may be wandering around to try and find a mate, and they're making very loud noises, and they're getting into fights with one another because they're defending their territories. They're using your flower bed as their litter box. These are all the kind of the problems. They're spraying their territory. These are all the problems that you're having. So we would say, let's trap them, let's spay and neuter them, let's tip their ear, which is what we call, it's a known symbol that this cat has been spayed or neutered, and then let's put them back. So if we put them back, you haven't created that vacuum to get an unneutered or unspayed animal into that community, but then they don't go and they don't, some of those behaviors will go away, and they're not bringing litters. If you find a litter, this is the one that's going to come up now that it's spring, you're going to find a litter, and all of a sudden you go out there and mom is gone. Well, mom could be gone because you frightened her away.
Right.
She could be gone because she has to relieve herself. She's maybe hunting because she has to eat in order to feed her babies. So we say keep calm, wait, and watch. Watch the kittens from a safe distance. We actually recommend about 35 feet away from the cats and see. If they're sleeping quietly and they're content, mom's recently been there and mom's has fed them. She may be out relieving herself or hunting so she can eat. If they start fussing and they're meowing loud, what we would still recommend is that we either recommend that you sprinkle flour around the nest where the kittens are.
Why is that?
And that's to check to see if their mom has comes back since you've done that. You'll see her paw prints in that.
Okay.
Or to put string and a tic-tac-toe across the cats to see if that gets, mom will move that string away. Because she may be coming back. Again, it may be she had to go further and further for that food and she's coming back. If you have observed and several hours have gone by and the kittens, it's clear mom's not coming back, then contact one of the agencies to see if they have an opening for those kittens.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So that is a problem, hopefully, that people can help out with. So, all right, tell our viewers about the OOPS program.
I like the OOPS program. It's only for dogs at this point in time, because we do get inundated with kittens during kitten season. The OOPS program is our opportunity to help reduce the pet population for puppies, in that you have an accidental litter, you have all these puppies. Did you know that the larger the litter, the more puppies that they will have? Not the larger the litter, I'm sorry. The larger the animal, the more puppies in the litters.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have a larger dog, you could have 10 to 12 puppies. A smaller dog may only have 3 or 4, but you've tried to find homes, you can't find homes for them. What do I do with all these puppies? Well, we will say we will take them in, and all we ask is that you let us also spay mom, so that we're not getting further. And it's called the OOPS program. You've got an OOPS, all right, we'll help you with the OOPS, but let's solve it for long term.
All right, well, that's a very good one. And you've already mentioned that you don't offer the dog training classes because there's so many other options for that, at least not at this time.
Not at our current facility. We're a little blocked in our facility.
Right. I was intrigued by yoga with cats.
That is one of our community engagement, and I recommend that you come.
Okay.
And we have a yogi who comes once a month, and they're in one of our gathering rooms, and they have a peaceful scent in the air. There's lavender in the air. They have peaceful music, and they do yoga. And there just happens to be some cats in the room. There's usually 4 or 5. They come in and they will hang out with you. It's really fun in the spring because when the kittens are there, the kittens will climb up people and over you. So the next time you're doing your downward dog, the cat will be there to tell you exactly what you're doing right or wrong.
That sounds very entertaining. Thank you. Tell me about the Paw Partners Social Program. Paw Partners.
Yeah, you know, it's important to us that we give back to our community, and we want to be part of our community. And one thing, as Nora pointed out, that we do know is that having a pet on your lap to pet and to talk to and share with, or someone to talk about your pet with and things like that is really, it's good for your soul, it's good for your health. And so we have volunteers who go out to the community, to locations like 10 Wilmington Place and Bethany or We Care Arts, and they will take a pet with them, and they will visit with the clients on location, and they will talk to them about that particular pet, but then also let them pet them and cuddle and get some puppy kisses or the like. But what I find is, it always happens, is there's really that connection between the people, right? You know, there's someone who wants to share about the dog that they had when they were a kid, or they want to talk about, oh, you know, I had a cat that just would follow me everywhere. And it gives them that chance to really interact and connect with someone one-on-one.
Good, good. That's excellent. It's kind of like a visitation type of program. That's excellent, excellent. And if somebody is managing a facility that thinks that they could benefit from that, they should just call you and see what can be worked out. Okay, great. Then there's also a camp program that I'd like to hear about, and I think we have a slide on the camp program as well.
Yeah, we have, as Nora had pointed out earlier, we have a couple thousand kids that come through our programming each and every year. It's a humane education program. Their kids are working with the animals, they're interacting with them. They're learning that animals aren't just playthings, that in fact they're a responsibility, something that we need to care for. And what research continues to show us is that children who learn empathy and respect with animals, they're less likely to be bullied at school, they're less likely to bully. As we all know, that's a problem in our schools here in the U.S. So we have our kids, they come in and they have different types of summer programs that they can participate in. We have day camps for kids that need service hours. A lot of programs, they need to get 20 service hours. They can go through one of our Paw It Forward camps, and they can earn up to 21 hours of service hours right then during our camp. So there's a lot of opportunities. Our summer camp registration is now open.
Oh, that's great. And what is the fee for the camp registration? The service would not have a fee, would it?
It does. Okay. It's a day camp, and they vary depending on if they're a day or if they're, like, we have mini camps for scouts that is usually about $6, $7 a child to $50, $75 a day.
Okay, good. Oh, thank you very much. And I also want to talk about your activities for adults that we have a slide here about.
Yeah, we have over 600 volunteers that come through our program, and they help us with programming. They also have, they can bring, if they have a child who's 8 to 12 years old, they can actually come in together and volunteer. Nice. But we also have humane education workshops for adults. So for instance, if your office wanted to do professional development and team building, they could come to SIXA and work and do a workshop together, get a tour of the organization, and those types of things. We also work with programs where we'll go in and we'll do wellness, where we will actually do a volunteer orientation with a business, and the participants are not only SIXA volunteers, but they can do Paw Partner Active, which is where they can come to SIXA and take a pet, a dog, out for a walk in the community at Delco Park or in our neighborhood, Bill Yeck Park, and get the dog some exercise, but also get ourselves some exercise.
Right, right. Well, thank you. It's good to know. It's good to know about that. We've already talked about your relationship to the Animal Resource Center. Is there anything else that we need to add about that? Because we're quickly losing our time.
I bet. One of the big questions we have is what's the difference between us and the Humane Society of Greater Dayton? Right. That's a big question. And really, it's about our focus and our niches that we have. So the Animal Resource Center, they're the dog warden, and then the Humane Society for Abuse and Neglect do everything else. They can also do dogs, but they also do investigations and neglect and stray on farm animals. And so they're out there in that community doing it for cats and farm animals and exotics even.
Okay.
So that's kind of, they do that. Animal care and control is what it is. SICSA doesn't do animal care and control whatsoever. But you'll see that our niche is the prevention programs, the spaying and neutering, the humane education, the adult education. So while all three of the organizations do adoptions, we all kind of have our little
specialties.
And we're not running out of dogs and cats, unfortunately.
No, we're certainly not.
We're lucky that this community has three very active organizations and then a plethora of smaller rescues.
Okay. You all have an exciting future. You are raising money and getting ready to build your forever home, as you call it. Why don't you tell our viewers about your plans?
You know, when we moved into our location that we're currently at, what used to be a strip mall, and then we built onto it. We had a small teeny house about where our garage is now. Before that, we never imagined the growth that we would see, but over the last decade we really have, and we're landlocked there in Kettering. We've been there over 40 years, but we just can't. We looked at it and there's just really not an economical way to grow. So unfortunately we had to start looking outside, and we have purchased land. We're very excited about that. It's in Washington Township, right off of 675. In fact, you can see our land from 675, so in terms of visibility, it's going to have really great visibility. And we're going from 11,000 square feet to 25,000 square feet.
Wow.
And a lot of that is our veterinary services will almost triple in terms of, we've just seen so much growth in the types of veterinary services that we're able to provide, and we're hoping to be able to offer some wellness programs for low-income folks. And then our humane education, 8,000 young people. Yeah. It's amazing, and we often are doing those off-site. We'd like to be able to offer more on-site, and then of course, as we learn more, we also learn about what we need in terms of to provide the care for these animals that we do have. Well, right now it's only a couple weeks. We need to make sure that we are always have the most up to date in terms of the size that they need to the enrichment programs that we need. So we're really looking forward to our new location. So we have started raising money. It's a $5 million campaign, and we're about a little bit over halfway there. And we're going to be starting to ask the community at large to help us get there. We'd really like to break ground this summer and be there in about a year, because we're busting at the seams.
Yeah, you really need the space. Okay. I'm sorry to say that we are completely out of time. So I had promised you closing remarks, but you have just concluded and made them. So if you have any further questions, look on the website or call SICSA. I want to thank both Nora and Katie and Marguerite and Bambi for coming in and spending this time with us. And thank you to the viewers. Good night.